Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Drey Davis. I'm here with my co-hosts Anthony Lykes and Rafael Rhodes. This is episode number 16
Sweet 16,
of
baby.
the Let Me Say This podcast.
Ooh, we're
And
officially
man,
podcasters.
we are officially podcasters, guys. So you know what, man? Let's go off the grid. Let's start there, man. How we feeling? We feeling official today?
I
Feeling
was gonna kind of like say we should have saved that when we hit the 25th episode. Honestly, I don't want to kind of reflect on that yet because I don't want to get outside influence to feel like, hey, you guys are not official until you do X amount of episodes. Nah, man, we consistent. Give us a preview of what we're about to dive into today, though. I'm gonna cut you off.
I got you. Nah. Today we're gonna get into a couple things. We got some MLB on tap, some UFL on tap. We got a little bit, I think, in the NFL to speak on. And then we're gonna finish off with the main event of the evening, the NBA Finals. It is up to through game 5 as of today's recording. Game 6 will be this upcoming Thursday. Hopefully we'll get a recording in either before or after that. But fellas, I want to talk about the MLB first. A very big trade just went down this past weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. Rafael Devers from the Red Sox, somewhat of a cornerstone, somewhat of a franchise player, somewhat of a hitting machine, has somewhat been shipped off for 4 prospects to the San Francisco Giants. Anything that you guys got from that trade that you thought was interesting?
Well, I knew I knew Boston said they weren't gonna trade him come training camp. Before training camp started, Boston was saying they were keeping him because they felt that he was a cornerstone of their organization. He fit their organization. They wanted to keep him in place in Boston. So this kind of comes as a little bit of a surprise that they're going to ship him off because he has a $300 million contract that he's going with too. He was supposed to be there for 6 years, $300 million, and they shipped him off. So
baseball money, man.
And he was only
baseball money.
And he was only a year and a half into that said contract, which makes it really even more interesting.
So it's kind of weird that the Boston Red Sox are making that kind of move. Did they give up on him? Well, I know they moved him from third base to DH. He wasn't happy with the move. And then come training camp, he was still at DH. And then in the beginning of the season, their first baseman got hurt and they moved him to first base. And he was like, that's not my position. I've told you guys numerous times, I want to play third base. And then when it didn't happen, I guess there was some sour grapes between the organization and him. So it kind of makes sense if you put it that way. But then at the other end of it, you're sitting there going, wow, for 4 prospects? I mean, that's kind of a lot.
It sounds like
that's a
Luka
big part of that
Doncic
trade.
and Anthony Davis wrapped into one trade. Like AD said, I want to play the 4. We need to get us a big man. Hey, AD, thanks for your service in LA. And then on the flip side of that, this like y'all alluded, the cornerstone of our franchise, and we're just gonna ship him out for, potential, basically. So it seems like that's what that is, wrapped into one. And then you throw on that contract. It's just like, I mean, like I said, it's baseball money. There's no cap space, and then you got a team like San Francisco haven't did anything in recent years, but they're somewhat of a competitive team. So they're open, in the terms of the rims or spending money. They're not like some of the bottom feeders in the MLB, like the team that in the Bay with them as well, Oakland, that's relocating in future years. But yeah, so
I'm about to say they're not in the Bay no more.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at it as.
And I think to reflect on Rafael's point, to give a little bit more background on the trade. Rafael Devers is historically bad glove as well. And so what the Boston Red Sox franchise or front office went out and did was sign Gold Glover Alex Bregman to play third base, which I was talking to a friend of mine that is a Red Sox fan, and his point is that we gave you $300 million not to play third base, to be a part of our franchise. If we need you to move to DH, if we need you to move to first base, if we needed you to play catcher, We gave you $300 million to be a part of this franchise and to help us be great.
That brings the question up, though, and I don't mean to cut you off, Drey, but that kind of brings the question up of, like, when you're getting paid that kind of money, are you a team player? Are you part of the team to make the team better, or are you just set in your ways?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my argument. I argued the player's point. You signed me for $300 million for my bat and to play third base. Did you not? So if that's what you signed me to do, you signed me a year before Alex Bregman ever even got here for $300 million to play third base and for my bat. And a year later, you told me you don't even want me on the infield. You just want me to bat. And I feel like that's one of the more disrespectful parts on the front office's side. But I understand, like I said, like, I understand both sides of it. We paid you $300 million. We need you to be open to the concept of making us a better franchise.
Right. So it's kind of that, and that, I think that begs the question, like, are you a team player at that point? If I need you to just hit, so like Shohei Ohtani, right? And Shohei's a good point of that, right? You're paying him a bunch of money to be on the Dodgers. He came in as a pitcher. They're like, hey, you got a good bat. We're going to put you at DH. Did he complain?
I mean, and the fact that he's rehabbing, kind of, I guess you could say, from the elbow, the Tommy John, kind of helps into that, though. So I get what you say, Rafael, in that regard, but I think it's kind of different. You know, I don't necessarily say they're not comparable, but the scenarios are different. We can't obviously put this guy on the mound because we don't want to wear him out. You know,
and something
before
else
he heals. But this situation seems
something else to go with your point, Anthony. Shohei's contract in comparison to Rafael Devers is night and day. And I think Shohei would happily, for the money that he's making, I think he would happily just bat.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, he wanted to get back on the mound, but when they were like, hey, we're not going to rush you,
no problem.
He didn't sit there and say no and fight it. He sat there and said, okay. He's a team player. It's while to Anthony, to your point, the situation is different. However, the attitude of the player is what I'm talking about. The attitude should be the same for Rafael Devers. Like, you're paying me this money to essentially play a kid's game. It's a kid's sport. I played baseball as a kid. I'm sure you guys did too, at least to some degree.
I was a one sport guy, you know. Backyard baseball, though, you know. I was like Pablo in backyard baseball.
Yeah, but I played baseball in the backyard on the sand lot, you know, and I played in Little League, and you're playing a kid's sport for fun, but you're getting paid a bunch of money to do it. Like, why are we complaining? If I need you to hit, that's probably one of the funner parts of the game, is you get a chance to bat.
I think he's complaining because he's going, I don't think his Massachusetts tax free. Now he's going to a place that charges a boatload of tax money. So I'll be mad at that first and foremost. But hey, I guess, you know, it's one of these situations, and I haven't heard too much about the Red Sox this year. So have they? I don't want to say they've been in tank mode, but have they been like a bottom dweller in the American League?
They're kind of mid tier.
Yeah, they just came out of a 3-or-4 game series with the Yankees, where they won that series right before, and then they made the trade. They are probably 2 or 3 games under 500, so they're not a subpar team. Okay, they're a team that have a couple holes, but I just can't see losing a cornerstone and probably one of your top 3 players on your roster right now for marbles and grapes, or, you know, seeds to be sown, whereas he's being traded to the San Francisco Giants, who are second in their division and pushing to be a contender this year. And so you know, I mean, it's interesting to see, like you said, which I want to pose a question before we kind of segue into the next person we want to talk about in the MLB, who's also a DH. The question of the day: does the universal DH, although in Devers' situation, the AL, there would be a DH either way, does the universal DH hurt or help the MLB?
It definitely helps, because you don't want to see your pitcher, unless it's Shohei Ohtani, but you don't want to see your pitcher out there on the mound. That's basically a free out I haven't, I can count on hand how many baseball games I watched 1 through 9 innings, and I also probably can only use 2 fingers the times I seen watching the National League, because it mainly was the National League that had the pitcher in the batting order. I can see a pitcher that hit a home run or even made it to base. So it's just like, yeah, I'm pro DH. Like, I should have thought this should have been done years ago. And I'm, at this point, I guess you could say like an intermediate baseball fan then. But even as a casual, I was looking like, why does the National League not have a DH? Why do they have a pitcher in the lineup batting? So I think it helps.
I think I'm with you on that one, Anthony. I also think that having a designated DH does help. I think it's good for the game. Personally, just because the game is now revolving around more offense, and you get that DH that's universal, everybody gets a chance to have that offense. And to Anthony's point, nobody wants to see the pitcher hit, because usually when the pitcher comes up, they're ninth in the rotation, and they're coming up and they're just going to either sacrifice bunt or try to hit a single, unless your name's Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I know this is a video game, but even in the video games, when that used to happen, I used to put my pitcher first. Like, man, let's get this out the way, man. And like, we don't, I know you want your leadoff guys, the guys that can get you on base.
You're giving up that out.
Yeah, you want your leadoff guys to start off, and then you get your middle of the bat, the guys that bring in the runs, but then and then that back half, that back three, whatever. But yeah, so that's what I used to do. But like I said, this like you said, this is great for offense, as we've seen the league cater more to offense with the pitch clock, and they're trying to make the games faster. Run times go from being 3 hours and 15-minute games to more of a 2 hour and 20-minute, 2.5 hour game. So yeah, that it pays significance for that.
And that's the thing, though. It's affecting, because now look at all these pitchers. You don't have. So when I was growing up, and I'm 10 years older than you guys, but when I was growing up, you had Tom Glavine that had a 2.1 ERA, and that was like one of the lower ones back in the day. That and actually that was kind of mid. But then you go kind of now, you delve into the pitchers now, and a lot of them are sub 3s.
3s and 4s. See,
and those are the low ERA. Those are low. So you can see that the DH is having an effect on, and the pitch clock is having an effect on the offense of the game in baseball.
Yep. And speaking of universal DH, is one of what I think will go down as the greatest universal DH in Shohei Ohtani, had his pitching debut for the first time in over a year.
Was dead. No, I'm just playing.
For the first time.
Should he get in the Hall of Fame? That's a different question for a different day.
I would really hope so, but I don't see it happening. So Shohei ended up pitching a full inning, almost a 30-pitch inning. He gave up 2 hits and an earned run in his first comeback inning. It's good to see Shohei back on the mound. Like I alluded to earlier in the episode, I don't foresee, nor if I was Shohei, would I ever step back on the mound. To be honest, I would stay right at DH, especially now that he's crossing over into his 30s. Not that, baseball bodies are completely different. He just had Tommy John, but, Shohei, for the most part, has been built to last. He's going to be in this game another 6 or 7 years, easily.
I think he's going to be in longer.
And that's why I think I'm really adamant now about him just not pitching anymore. But Shohei's a competitive athlete, so he is going to want to continue to pitch. How do you guys think that, the Dodgers will utilize him this year going forward, pitching-wise?
Honestly, when it comes to him pitching, I would want to see him more in a relief role, or even, I don't want to say, maybe we could try him at closer, maybe, but put him in, and that 5th, 6th, 7th inning before you break out your closer, your actual closer, and see how that goes. Or even a setup. Hey man, just go out here and get us this quick out, and then we put our closer in to finish the inning off and get the last 2 outs. I don't think we don't need him to go 6.5 or 6 1/3 or whatever. We don't need him. We don't need that for the time being. Now maybe in a playoff series, when as the season progresses, maybe we add him to that pitching rotation for a series. Maybe the division series, the NLDS, but like I still wouldn't risk it. We need that bat, honestly, if anything. But yeah, that's how I feel what they should do.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Anthony. I think putting him in the relief role and letting him kind of ease his way into it is probably the best way to do it if you want him to pitch. But don't mess with a good thing you got going for your organization. Now, I understand that he wants to pitch, and you can give him that opportunity every once in a while, but he hasn't worked his way up. Usually, first off, give credit to Shohei Ohtani and the athlete that he is, because Tommy John surgery, and for all sorts and purposes in baseball, is a career ender. That ends careers. The fact that he stepped on the mound last night and pitched a full inning, I mean, that's pretty impressive when you really look at it. Because normally pitchers don't come back from Tommy John. That is almost unheard of. So you got to give him credit for that. You got to give him credit for wanting to sit there and pitch. But ultimately, where is he most valuable to the team? He's a designated hitter. And he puts up points and he bats, and his bat is what's getting you to the dance a lot of the times. I would just say keep him at DH.
I would hope so. I think I kind of agree with the thought process of just using him as a playoff pitcher at best. Hopefully more of in a relieving role. I think, we are almost to the Midsummer Classic. And
Yes.
I think with, what'll be on the back half, 81 games left, I think is eloquent, especially in the Dodgers situation. They have a stable of pitchers already on hand. They have an amazing cast of batters and fielders galore that they, like Anthony said earlier, they don't mind spending a little money to make sure their baseball is good. After what we saw from the Los Angeles Dodgers a couple years back, it's kind of eerie to see how good they are now that they decided to open the checkbook. But Shohei has a DH. Like I said, if he isn't second or third, somewhere in that talks for being one of the best DHs when it's all said and done, what it could do for his career if he could just DH for the Los Angeles Dodgers for the next 3 years, especially with the roster that they have and that they'll probably have for at least another 2 years.
With him and Mookie Betts, I mean, you got Mookie Betts too, and Mookie Betts is also one of the best players that's playing baseball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I personally say you keep Shohei at DH, have his bat mean something to you, and go from there.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I would do. But the Dodgers are going to do what they want to do, and if Shohei wants to pitch, I mean, you're paying him the money.
Yeah, that's what you pay him to do. So,
and I'm pretty in the back of their minds, like, and we want him to kind of do it. I mean, understanding the circumstances with the injury, but at the same time, if he's available to pitch, hey man, we kind of brought you here to do both things. I know that bat, but we still like you're still a two-way player. We brought you here to do both of those things, but we're gonna work your way into that rotation, and then, like I said, you give us 2 good innings, 3 good innings, work your way up.
And I think that's what they're doing. They're just trying to give him that opportunity to sit there and work his way back up, work his way back into the rotation. But still, I mean, what are you sacrificing at that point?
Yeah, we don't even know who the alternate DH is.
Don't do it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was everything I think that we will have today on the MLB. Moving on into some more minor sport news that is one of my favorite sport or leagues. The UFL had their championship this past weekend between the DC Defenders and the Michigan Panthers. I was able to catch a good bit of all of that game, actually. An incredible game that featured, I think, some 90 points combined between the two teams in a win for the DC Defenders, 58-34, with a coach that was the quarterback's coach back in March or April when their former coach, Reggie Barlow, which is a hometown hero for us, left and was hired by a college. This team led by Jordan Ta'amu, former Ole Miss Rebel. An outstanding game. I think another outstanding display of spring football. Spring football has come to a close after another said 12 games. I've said it before. I'm a high horseman. I am a very big avid fan of the UFL. Maybe because one of my hometown teams have just emancipated everything that even could, possibly take place in that league. Um, and so, I always say I'm pushing for expansion. And as crazy as it sounds, because I know this is a big argument in the NFL, I'm pushing also for them to have more games over more weeks. And I think that's, being spoiled as an NFL fan, but I didn't feel like 12 games was enough for me. Anything you guys got on the UFL?
I think. Speaking on that, I think 14 games would do them right, honestly, and then maybe adding 4 more teams because I know there's some teams from the the XFL and the USFL that didn't make the cut. Like I know they combined the Roughnecks down in the Gamblers or whatever,
Something like
Houston.
that.
They combined those 2 teams, but yeah. So I
To
think
your point, they are expanding. They're going to expand. Like they have expansion in the works. They're working on that stuff. They're also working on. I think they are working on really kind of growing the league a little more and putting more games out there. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of the XFL or the USFL or whatever it is nowadays. And
yeah,
I personally think that spring football is great for the game of football because you have a lot of these undrafted free agents and you have a lot of these undrafted guys that come out of college that you still give them an opportunity to showcase their talents. Not playing in Europe where you never catch the games. They're playing here in the States. They're playing at home and you can still watch them play and you can still see that they can make an impact. I mean, there were a couple guys that sat there and still made NFL rosters.
Yeah. Just to throw out some numbers as well while we are talking about it, I'm looking at the attendance for the UFL for this year. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different teams that averaged at least 10,000 fans a game this season, which again I feel like is phenomenal for in-game, like in-person seating. Although in some of these areas, the weather during spring is pretty humid,
It could
pretty
be rough.
hot, pretty
Could be
rough.
rough.
St. Louis, which is the only dome UFL team right now, averaged.
Michigan. I thought Michigan played in Ford Field.
Michigan does as well, but to speak in comparison, Michigan did average 11,000 fans a game. The St. Louis Battlehawks, however, averaged 27,000 fans per game.
They missed
St. Louis
football
is
in that city.
St. Louis is where they have the championship every year. St. Louis was actually in contention of being in the championship. What just the thought process of possibly bringing in 40,000 fans to see UFL football. That's something that could have happened, didn't happen. I think if you had gotten the matchup of Birmingham and St. Louis, you would have saw a record-breaking, UFL championship. But like you said, Rafael, the UFL has had preliminary talks about expanding, having a longer season. That's something I think, like I said, as a fan, just seeing 8 teams is kind of I need a little bit more diversity. I need a little bit more
I
storyline. I
think they
need a
kind
little
of.
bit more,
I think they, as far as it, I think they being patient with it because one thing you don't want the one
you don't
league
want
that
to
we had before
oversaturate it.
XFL, we had the AAF,
Yeah.
and they had to close down
Because they
halfway
didn't
through their
have
season.
enough.
So yeah, and they got off to a pretty good start. Like that was like the initial comeback of the spring leagues. And then
Yeah.
when that happened, and then XFL was supposed to happen a year later, but we all know the pandemic happened, so they kind of had to push back for I think a year or two. Because I can remember when we had just a few short years ago, we had USFL, and then the XFL came, or whoever was first. I can't
And then
remember which one was.
it was both of
But
them were competing for the same
yeah,
market.
and then they sat down. Hey, let's
just
merge.
Let's just merge
and then you
be
got
done with it.
Dwayne the Rock. Maybe he could talk to TKO like, hey man, you see what we doing with this? See what we doing right here? Like, man, maybe y'all can
To
give
your
us some
point,
financial backing.
I was about to say, to your
I don't even
point,
know.
ESPN and ABC and what they do for that league is tremendous.
Yes.
It's tremendous.
And I think where they're falling short is the marketing of the UFL. Yeah. They're not falling short on the business side of it.
No.
I know they had talks.
They're taking care of business.
Yeah, I know they had talks with the contracts and people not getting paid enough, and the league not making enough money. But where they're having an issue right now is marketing and getting the product out to mainstream audiences and getting them excited about spring football, because it literally comes right off the heels of the NFL. And I think where you would actually make a little more money is turning it into a summer league where you're leading into the NFL when no other sports are going on.
Aside from baseball, I hear you.
Aside from baseball. So if you started, let's say that the UFL or the USFL started their league and they started their games in beginning of June, where you have the tail end of the finals, you have the tail end of hockey. They start their season there and they end right before training camp of the NFL starts.
But I hear you on that. But the only thing with that, you get some of these guys that get a chance to go try out for an NFL roster. So it would kind of cut into that. So that's why they kind of call it a spring league. It's,
so you know, can still get a chance to get on somebody's roster.
It's basically an unofficial farm system for the NFL. So that's kind of why.
But the NFL's not using it as a farm system. They're not using it as a minor league.
Yeah, they're not.
And I think they're missing the marketing on that too. And if they named it the minor leagues where you can get called up. So let's say St. Louis.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So if St. Louis
still have a chance to play and compete and get better, while the NFL is still possibly scouting your talent.
And some of these teams are in teams that have big markets for the NFL. Like the DC Defenders have the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens literally 30 miles apart from each other. And then you look at Michigan that plays in Detroit. They play at Ford Field.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost like a farm system. Birmingham is so close to New Orleans. Like that would be their
to Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hotbed for a lot of talent.
Birmingham has the G League. They got the G League team for the Pelicans, so it's nice that you bring that up. But yeah, as far as that goes,
that's a midway between both of those teams that they could be a farm system there.
Yeah, even Tennessee, because Nashville is not that far.
So I mean, I think there's a little bit like they got to market it just a little bit better.
Yeah,
I know you guys brought up ESPN, but like, yeah, ESPN is ESPN, but at the same time, this is a potential employer, so I need to watch my words, but it is what it is. First Amendment speech. ESPN is kind of in some fans' eyes is a dying network. Aside from when football season is happening, most people don't tune into ESPN. ESPN peak season is during like the fall months, but then when football season is over, after the Super Bowl or after a national championship, depending on which brand of football you're more of a fan of, they turn away from ESPN. And then now the quality of the content is all basically hot take, shock jocking, and engagement farming type content. So it's not that the authenticity that we grew up on, and it's not, not that many personalities that we had. So that's what kind of turns a lot of people away from even tuning in to maybe watching UFL, besides our core fans that just love football and stuff like that. So
right, because ESPN, and Anthony, to your point, ESPN it's not that they're a dying network, it's just the interest is shifted, and now you have so many capabilities to get your news elsewhere about sports. I mean, we carry it on our phones. It's on our tablets. It's on our laptops. And I mean, I can get it at work. I can pull up all my sports news and all my highlights at work. Now your highlights are now posted on social media, where ESPN, we used to turn on the TV and watch TV in the morning while we were getting ready for school. I mean, right or wrong.
Loved it.
Get that top 10. That's those top 10s.
Right. That's what we were doing. But now
that's how I know about Ovechkin and Sid the Kid, because watching sports in the top 10 highlights.
But now you can get that anywhere now. And I think to me, that's kind of and ESPN is starting to grow back up, because they do have deals currently with the UFC, which keeps them in business.
Mm-hmm.
They have deals, they have the deal with ESPN, with NBA now on ESPN. which
But
is
they're
keeping
about to
them going.
lose MLB, and we got stars in the MLB. We got stars in every league in
Really
North
big
America.
stars can't afford to lose the MLB, but the
Yeah, like we
MLB
got
can make
Shohei. It's probably
yeah.
we could consider the face of MLB, and they're losing MLB because they don't cover it. So
And so but is that, are they not covering it because of the popularity? I don't think it's the popularity. I actually think numbers are currently up, and I don't have the current stats in front of me, but I think the numbers are currently up from what they were last year for the MLB.
I just think in years past, what really happened with the MLB as far as ESPN goes is they were hiring the wrong people to have talk shows about baseball. They were very monotone and not very easy to watch at all. And baseball players aren't the most charismatic sometimes. And so they just talk, they just eat, sleep, and breathe baseball. And sometimes people they just don't want to see that. So,
See, that's what the NHL used to be. You never saw a lot of these players showing their personality. You never saw a lot of the NHL players. You never saw Gretzky on a talk show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see the Kachuk brothers go on there. You're starting to see other podcasts out there like for hockey, Spittin' Chicklets with Paul Bisnetti. And he is fantastic on a microphone, and they're showing their personalities. And it's like, God, if you could show these guys more. Brad Marchand for Florida. He's a prankster, and he's doing great on that team, but his personality is also shining through.
Yeah. And speaking of the NHL, I'm glad that's a great segue into that. As we are about 10 minutes at the time of recording before Game 6, potential clinching, winning Game 6 in Florida. It's not looking so good for my Connor McDavid. I'm not gonna say the Oilers because I just like Connor McJesus.
I told you, Panthers in 6.
But you guys called it. We're on the ropes, and we got our standing 8. We're being asked if we want to continue. I'm hoping that another good fight, again, another good game will be put up. But I think we all predicted, and since this will be the next segment after this, we predicted that on one hand that the NHL Stanley Cup Finals will end in 6, and I predicted that the NBA Finals will end in 6, and now we're at that place where both of those things can happen. What we got on the NHL, fellas?
Controversy sells, and I said this in the group text, and I'm going to say it on the podcast. First and foremost, the hottest, let me say this, moment of the summer. Even as a casual hockey fan, and like I said, I am using that term, an intermediate to lower level advanced NBA fan, I'm going to give the nod to the Stanley Cup as far as how I seen the games been played. Now, the finals have been beautiful. It's not just a bunch of we jacking up threes and shooting 75 threes, not combined. Each team shooting 75 threes, combining for 100 plus threes, none of that.
Oh, man,
guys
that
are
is
getting
so
to
crazy that we actually saw that happen.
Guys are getting to their spots, getting their shots and stuff like that. But this Stanley Cup, we've had it's 6 games. Going into 6 games, I can't say half because the 6 games haven't been played yet, but 2 of the games have been overtime games. We saw this team was up 3-1 or 4-1, and they lose 4-3, 5-4. We saw that. So I'll just give the nod to the NHL as far as how the games have been played. And like I said, Panthers in 6. I'm looking for them to repeat. You've done it. So you know what it takes to win. You don't have to go out here and press. I'm not gonna. I mean, I guess I kind of say that cliche. Hey, it's just another game, man. And but it's just the stakes are a little bit higher.
Not for the oldest trophy in the world. Not for the oldest trophy in the world.
It's just the stakes are a little bit higher. It's just the stakes are a little bit higher. Like I said, y'all did it just a season ago, so you could do it again. Panthers in 6, and that's pretty much all I got.
I'm going to agree with you. As much as I have enjoyed the NBA Finals, overall, I think it's been a great finals, regardless of what some people think because they're small market teams. And I'm sure we'll cover that in the next segment.
Don't fire me up.
No. I'm going to fire you up because I think we'll cover that in the next segment. But when it comes to the NHL, they have been lighting it up as far as ratings and game production, and excitement go. And I think I told you guys on our very first episode, if you haven't caught an NHL game yet, just watch. Just pop it on and watch and see if you guys become fans. And look at the product that's been pushed out to us by the Panthers and the Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it all. You've seen fights, you've seen aggression, you've seen physicality, you've seen close games,
speed, you've seen finesse, you've seen goals.
Yes,
and goals.
And as much as we can sit here, as much as we can
sit here
and say, we can sit here and say, like I'm with Anthony on this one. I think Florida's going to win it. We can sit there and say they're going to lock it down tonight. Are we sure?
Yeah,
because of the way they've been playing.
It's not a sure thing.
The way they've been playing, because Oilers have been on the ropes. They've been down 3 goals to nothing, and then all of a sudden they fire back and they win 4-3 in overtime.
Yep.
I mean, can you really sit here and say that Florida's going to sit there and pull it out? I can't. I know Florida's going to win, but it's been so back and forth. This could go to 7. Yeah, and with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the ice, you never know. Now, their only question mark is who's in the net. And I know that tonight they're starting Skinner in the net, and Skinner's been giving up a lot.
Yeah, because they didn't start him on Saturday, and
they didn't start him.
Yeah, and they were talking about that post game, how and maybe they were kind of saving them for this type of moment. But sometimes hey man, we need to put our best guys available at all times. Need to be on the floor, on the ice, on the field, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you got to put your best guy out there, and
got to.
And they made that mistake already, and I think I don't know, because the overtime games they won, they had Skinner in.
Yeah.
But then again, you also look at the other side. Sergei Bobrovsky's been playing lights out in the net for Florida.
Also, I did not know that McDavid, your guy, his first goal scored was in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup, in the Stanley Cup Finals. That is, his first goal scored was Game 5. Is he known as a goal getter, or is he kind of like the guy that kind of sets up everybody? Because I know hockey has those specific roles.
He's a everything guy that, like, when the puck is in his hands or on his stick, like, everybody stands up. Something's about to happen.
Yeah, because the way he scored that goal is not. He kicked it to his teammate. Teammate basically kicked it back to him, and bam.
He's a playmaker.
Nice setup.
He's considered a playmaker. He is your point guard. That's going to be a playmaker. He knows where to pass the puck. He's extremely fast.
Yes.
He's not afraid to get physical.
No.
And he can shoot. And he takes very calculated, smart shots.
And when they say shoot, like, just go look up Connor McDavid goals, career goals.
Dude.
That highlight tape in itself is he did slow it back down, and you see that he did something else that you didn't even think he did. He'll throw it behind his back and between his legs to his other hand, switch hands.
Or deke, I mean.
Yeah, deke.
And then hit it back to his other side and do a slap shot. And man, he's an amazing player. He really is.
He is. Now, here's my question: if he doesn't win it,
it's time to
first
move.
off, is Florida a dynasty team because they won back-to-back, and they're only the 8th team in the NHL to ever go back-to-back and win? If they win, is Florida a dynasty?
We reserved the dynasty talk for a team that wins 3. It don't have to be a 3-peat. It could be 3 and 4 years, or even a New England on their second wave, or 3 and 5 years, something like that.
But
we don't really reserve a back-to-back. And I know it is crazy we say that, because the San Antonio Spurs never went back-to-back, but they won 5 championships in 15 years, and we can still consider that a dynasty.
But and I understand what you're saying, but they are only the 8th team in NHL history, if they win, to win the Stanley Cup twice in a row.
Okay, so the most recent team to go back-to-back was the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do we consider them a dynasty? I'm not trying I'm not trying to come off as a,
No.
But,
I get what you're saying, but I'm just asking, are you putting them in the dynastic talks?
Well, we would have to honestly, like, they got to win this series, and two,
and then it really depends on what
happens
next year.
Hate to go into you know what I'm saying. We haven't got past,
see the future.
If they get to the Stanley Cup Finals next year, that's their 4th year in a row being in the Stanley Cup Finals, because this is their 3rd year in a row being in the finals. 2 years ago they lost to Las Vegas.
Okay, so they could be 2-1, 2 trips in
3 years.
In 3 years, three trips in 4 years.
3 trips in 4 years. Yeah, 3 trips in 4 years.
If they win tonight, then yes, you could very well be considered like one of those great teams of all time. That's a very important part.
Yeah,
and now on the opposite side, on the other question, what does that do for Connor McDavid and his legacy if he doesn't win?
I still think he goes down as one of the best players. Like the thing about sports that I think overcomes what one side of fans say versus the other side of fans is that the best player in a sport is the best player in a sport. Like there's no taking that away. No matter what, back in 2009, before the decision, there's nothing that anybody could have said then that would have taken place in the next 6 years, or I'm sorry, 15 years after that would have changed LeBron not being the best player to ever play the game, or one of the best players to play the game. I don't think it really does anything different for Connor as far as like his legacy. He's a great player.
He's fantastic. He's exciting to watch, and he's fantastic. To me, if he doesn't win, if he never wins a Stanley Cup, he's kind of like the Dan Marino of hockey, right?
Right.
Dan Marino is one of the best ones to never have won
Hall of Famer.
A Super Bowl. He's a Hall of Famer. Statistically, he's just one of the ones that never got a chance to win.
Yep.
And I think you put Connor McDavid right there with him.
Yeah.
And it's a really close call for me.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Some guys just get caught up in the wrong era. I will say that too, though. Dan Marino, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. Yeah, hell, even almost Peyton Manning. But
John Stockton.
Yeah. So,
and to get into our real dinner for this afternoon, speaking of the NBA, we're gonna start a little light with a last little bit of an appetizer in the NBA before we really get to our main course. Desmond Bane was dealt to the Orlando Magic this past weekend as well, in exchange for a host of picks.
4 first-round picks.
And a couple of players. I think those were some unprotected picks. So I think those actually may not even come back to what the Magic is saying with that trade is they are invested in the next 3 years that surrounds with Paolo, Jalen Suggs, Wags, what'll now be Desmond Bane. They are invested in the next 3 years. We talked about it a little bit off screen. I said it. The Magic, after an appearance in this year's NBA playoffs, and I think a play-in or playoff appearance in the previous season, are looking to be contenders. I guess to say less.
I think they were a 5 seed a year ago.
So I don't. If they are, and I need to go back and look, if they are unprotected picks, then it's not as terrible as a trade as it could be. Because I mean, it could be better, it could be worse. If they make the playoffs, that's a back half of 20, just off that. So, I don't know. Anything on the Desmond Bane trade?
Besides the Orlando Magic are trying to, like I said, basically expedite, like especially like what we seen with the Celtics. We don't know what's going on with the Knicks, so it seems that they're looking at it. Hey, the East next season is pretty wide open. It might be a 3 or 4 team race between Cleveland, Indianapolis, Orlando, and whomever. Maybe the Pistons.
Yeah,
it all depends on where Giannis goes.
Yeah, that too. But if he stays put in Milwaukee, then I don't expect much from Milwaukee if Giannis stays put in Milwaukee. So there's that. New York, we don't even know who's going to be their coach, so we waiting on that. Boston, like I said, they're going to be down their best player,
and that's going to be it for a while too.
And they can still, I consider, still be competitive because it's just Boston. Like that's that's one of those sports towns that just a never die attitude. So the spirit of Boston and the city of Boston, the spirit, how they play. I don't think they're amongst one of the top seeds, but I do think they're right in the middle, maybe a 5-6 seeds, enough to not be a play-in team. So, but I do look at it an early preview. Of course, teams are going to have Indy because you always have the team that makes the finals or win the finals back as one of the favorites. Like I said, we could, depending on how the first, I would say 15, 20 games for Orlando, we can kind of determine where they will fall. Detroit, depending on what they do in the offseason, whether a big move or a small move. And like I said, maybe Cleveland, if Cleveland can get healthy, or maybe they look to move on from one of those guys, not named Donovan Mitchell, obviously, and see what they do. But, and like I say, this is a 3 or 4 team race as far as I go for next season.
I think Orlando played a hell of a season this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to give them credit from where they were expected to be and where they came. Like they've been fantastic. So I've been impressed with Orlando, and I think Drey, to your point, they're investing to win. They're investing to win. They're in it to win it. And I think they're proving to their fan base, like, I'm here to win. We're going to make the right moves to put ourselves in a position to win championships here in Orlando.
And another thing too, I didn't want to bring this up, but hey, they lose their franchise players. They lost Shaq because they didn't want to pay Shaq. Dwight Howard, I guess he was just kind of unhappy, but even Dwight Howard came out and admitted that he may have jumped the gun too soon, trying to chase a ring, trying to submit his legacy instead of, staying in Orlando. You don't want to make this mistake with Paolo Banchero. Like, you don't want him to see him go elsewhere.
That's what I'm saying. They're investing in him. They're investing in him now.
Yeah,
they are investing in him now. They want to put their faith in Paolo Banchero, and they want to give him the support now to win games. So if you're asking me right now, I think they're doing the right thing, and I think they're playing it right. If you're asking, I personally think that they're playing the right ball game to make sure that they get the right people in.
Don't disagree whatsoever, man. But hey, while we talking about that basketball, while we talking about that hoops, man, this upcoming Thursday, like I said earlier, we got Game 6 coming up a couple episodes ago. I think we talked after Game 3. We talked about I think we actually talked after Game 2. We talked about how we thought what our predictions were for the next 2 games, because we probably would record before at least those 2 games. And now we've come back after 3 games. My prediction in the last episode was almost spot on. I think I said that I thought that the Thunder would win the first game and then the Pacers, but I think it ended up I know it happened the opposite way.
Yeah,
exactly how it needed to take place.
I said Indy with Game 3 and then OKC Game 4.
In order for my prediction for the Thunder in 6 to take place, this is exactly between Games 4 and Game 5. Game 3 was just a lights out game from Indiana. They, again, going back to the previous series, the home crowd of Indiana does something so amazing for that team. And I'm not expecting them not to come near as energy full this upcoming Thursday. But the Game 4 runoff from the Thunder, walking out with that game that they were not supposed to win, and then going back home, Tyrese Halliburton comes down with some right calf injury. He doesn't perform very well. Now going back on the road, you guys asked me in the last episode if I thought that the Thunder would want to go home and win in front of their fans, and I confidently said Thunder in 6 because of I might have had the script. I'm not going to tell you guys any type of lies. I can't tell you guys what I put in.
We know you're fixing games, Tom Donahue.
My parlays have been set for a little while now, so I when we get past the series, I'll tell y'all what happened. But in order for the Thunder to win on Thursday, this is exactly what needed to take place. They needed to run off with Game 4 in Indiana, leave the home crowd a little subdued, go back into their own home arena, come out with a win in Game 5, which they did with Jalen Williams having second to bar none his second highest career scoring total, and the same season, having 42 earlier this season against the Spurs, having 40 points last night against Indiana. In order for them to win, Shea and Jalen will have to perform at the same level again this upcoming Thursday.
I actually agree with you on this, because in order for the Thunder to walk away with Game 6, in my opinion, they have to do the exact same thing they just did last game in Game 5 and shut down Tyrese Halliburton. They held him scoreless through the first half. 0 points.
The entire game.
And the entire game, I think he only walked out with 10 points in the entire game.
He didn't have any.
He didn't score at all?
No.
I know through the first half he was scoreless.
Yeah, he didn't score any.
And I didn't catch the rest of the stats. So if you shut him down the entire game, then yeah, you're putting yourself in a great position to win. But the complimentary, if Indiana does the same thing with Shea, Indiana looks like they're in a good position too. So I think the X factor is going to be Oklahoma City and the fans. I think that is going to be the X factor that we are not anticipating, because you got to think, when Oklahoma City came back, what is it, the other night, they came back to fans at 3:00 in the morning, lined up, waiting to welcome them home. I mean, imagine what that place is going to be like on Thursday night. That's the X factor to me.
Yeah, that's wow.
I think he was
This is my concession speech. Congratulations to the Indiana Pacers on a great season. You had a great playoff run.
Oh, man, you're conceding already?
You had a great playoff run. We saw some moments from you guys in the playoffs. Every series, it seems like you guys were left for dead, and you got your second life, and you took games, you ripped hearts out of fans in every round.
We can't concede yet. We cannot concede yet.
But depending on what this MRI entails, even if it's something minor, it's just enough to kind of throw a wrench into the game plan. So congrats to Indiana on a hard-fought season. But,
if in 3 days, I'm sorry, not even in 3 days, if in 2 days' time, regardless of what that, and I wholeheartedly agree, regardless of what that MRI says, if in 2 days you can't guarantee me that Tyrese Halliburton will be 100%,
or close to it,
the series is over.
Close to it.
The series is over at that point.
You can't even be 89%, 90%, 83% even.
He's got to be 100.
And going back to 2019, if especially for an NBA Finals injury I saw live, going back to 2019,
Clay.
not even Clay, seeing Kevin Durant come back.
Kevin Durant, the Achilles,
off what had been a lingering injury the entire playoffs. The Warriors held KD out of that entire playoff run, the majority of that playoff run. They did not very much play him. I think he had like hamstring soreness or something like that. They ended up turning into a torn Achilles.
It was a calf strain.
Yeah, they turned into a torn Achilles. Tyrese Halliburton, I think I watched him as he walked out last night. I think he knows that he's in a dangerous spot. I think he knows that his team is in a dangerous spot. One thing that I really do like about Oklahoma City, and some of the things that some of the players said the other night, and to allude to a point that was made earlier in the episode, and one of my favorite old adages, it's just another game. You got to go out there the next game and play just the next game. And it is a lot of pressure, to Raphael's point as well, to go out there and what could be a potentially clinching game, to walk away in somebody else's house and to walk away with the NBA championship. But you asked me in the last episode, and I'll say again, I don't think they care about winning in front of their fans.
But just want to handle your business and get it done.
To your point, you got to give Indy credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the year that they've had. Last year, they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. This year, they're in the finals. I mean, you got to hope for next year.
Yeah. I think it's possible. I think it's very possible.
And I don't want to taint any team's championships, because Boston, they kind of say Boston kind of had a cakewalk to the playoffs And no, like I said, it's always about last team standing. And then this season, OKC Halliburton goes down in the finals, and now you guys capitalize. Like, no, I'm gonna still give credit where credit is due because these games are still hard to win, especially on the road. So it's just like, you know
on
what
the
I'm saying? So,
road.
and like I always say, when next man up, and the last team standing usually is the team that walks out with the hardware, regardless of the sport. So
That's a true adage no matter what sport you play. Like you just said,
yes,
right? Like it doesn't matter what the sport is, you know, the one walking out is the one that's on top.
yes. So
That's just
it's all
a
the
fact.
law of attrition. Who's the healthiest?
That's just
Who's
a
playing
fact.
at the hot time? Who's playing? Who's the hottest at the time? Who's the healthiest at the time? And we just a little bit of luck is involved. It's always going to be luck in a championship run. So
Absolutely.
there's
And
that.
to speak a little bit, just a little bit more on the game before we get out of here. I believe Tyrese suffered that injury in the first quarter, if I remember correctly. And what ended up happening is TJ McConnell ended up getting a significant minutes boost. He ended up posting 18 points off the bench last night, and the Thunder ended up winning by 11 points. And Tyrese Halliburton was 0 for 6 with 0 points. And I was asking Anthony before you joined, Rafael, what could have been if Tyrese Halliburton had just scored 14 points? A completely different game. And that's kind of the point that we're making.
That
50%, 50% Tyrese isn't going to do it.
No.
70% isn't going to do it.
No.
85 isn't going to do it. I don't even believe 90 is going to do it.
Nope.
If
And
he
like I
is
said,
anything less than 100, it's not going to matter.
after game 4, I said if they lose the series, that's the game to look back
Game
at.
4.
Yep.
Game 4 is the one. Yeah.
And now we're here. Could have been up 3-1. Basically, like I said, OKC was gonna win game 5 regardless, in my opinion. So you could be up 3-2.
Could be.
I will say though, to the NBA, congratulations on a hell of a finals. Regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely.
Where you were disappointed in having small market teams turned out to be probably one of the best things that ever happened.
One of the best. I just hate the fact that. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say because your ratings got boosted,
big time.
Fans watched, and it was entertaining because these games have been within 10 points of decisions every game.
With the exception, maybe the game 2, but even then it was still kind of close. But I just hate the fact that it looks like we're not gonna get another game 7 in the finals. But this has been a hard-fought series. This ain't been one of these series where the other team just squeaked by and got 2 games, but they got blew out the rest. Like, this did feel like 7 games.
It's been a grind. This has been a grind.
Really good.
Yeah, so
really good. That's very fair.
Yeah,
that is very fair.
I still hate that. On paper, we still won't get maybe a 7th game, but this is still it's still been a fantastic series. Shout out to the small markets. This is the way to go. And the NBA is making it to where, hey, no more ring chasing. And then if you want a ring chase, then guess what? You're not going to have a complete roster. Your reserve guys are going to be minimum guys. So good luck with trying to win with three guys that are eating the bulk of the salary, and the rest of the guys are making peanuts. So we're getting it. That's long gone now. We've seen every team basically the last I'll just go in and say even Golden State, they built that team. They had the 2 championships with the KD, but their core guys were still Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And then you mix in the younger guys, the Jordan Pooles and all those, and you make that trade, that little small trade for Wiggins. Okay, cool. And then we get Nuggets, draft, develop, Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter. Now we move on next year with Boston, Tatum, Brown, and then you add pieces around that. But majority of these championships now have been guys. The core guys have been with the organization at least near a decade or a decade plus. So, with the exception of SGA, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But
SGA is a different
draft
beast,
and develop. Draft and develop is winning the championships now, compared to just going out and trying to buy players and think you can just buy your way to a championship. So there's that. That's all I got on that piece.
That's very well said, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you 110%. I think you're absolutely right.
That's very well said, man. I think we just had a
And shout out to
16th.
the Miami Heat. I don't know
Hey,
why I
man.
wanted to say that, but shout out to the Heat.
You see how
Shout
you
out
see how people play, man. Let's get out of here,
Yeah,
man.
you
This
see
was
the
a
hater. You see the haters here?
this was a very sweet 16th episode, man. This was a beautiful episode. This is another fun episode. I know I'm saying that for myself,
Yeah,
but
I
I
agree.
think I speak for both of these guys when I say
Yes,
we
sir.
really enjoyed. We really do enjoy doing this. You know, we keep getting better. We keep putting out this content. I don't care if 1 or 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 people see this, man. As
That's
long
right.
as we continue to do this.
Before you
So,
take us out, I'm gonna say something because I'm gonna see who's gonna watch this in its entirety. Whoever watches this in its entirety, drop your cash apps in the comments of this video. I'm trying to see something. If so, there we go with that. If you watch the full hour of this episode, put your cash app in the comments because that means you saw this. And I'm not even going to say, hey, there's a surprise at the end. No, you're going to have to watch and find out. Drop your cash app in the comments because the giveaways will be starting soon. I'll just say that. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to say when, but if you might just wake up and see, hey, you got $20. You just got lunch for the day, $30. So, hey, drop your cash app in the comments if you made it this far in the video, and I'll let Drey take us out.
well, I speak for my partners, man, when I say we appreciate you. Again, like, share, subscribe if you're new. Comment down below anything that you saw from the episode. Anything you guys want us to talk about for Rafael Rhodes, Anthony Lykes, myself, Drey Davis. We appreciate y'all for letting us talk to y'all on the Let Me Say This podcast. To the next episode.
Thunder and 6. God damn it. I hate I had to switch up.
I like when
And
I'm
we
right
out.
sometimes, man.